This is Progress Culture. Progress Culture is a weekly happening where master drummer Paul F. Murphy and I share live improvised music and conversation with people from a variety of fields and expertises about the significance of human creativity in the advancement of ideas, culture, community, freedom, and progress for all. We're excited to have you here, so let's get into the show. But first, let's hear some music!
Hello, everybody. Tommy here, special guest host today of Progress Culture. And I am joined by the talented Paul F. Murphy,
Thank you.
the Dominic Anthony W. Fragman.
Hello. Hello.
What does the W stand for?
Warwick.
Warwick. And as a reminder, this is Thomas James Luganville. So, as usual, gentlemen, we're going to talk about a variety of things today. We want to thank our sponsor, Southern Maryland Loves You, for letting us be here. I want to thank my daughter, Brooke, for giving us TomBro Studios for the afternoon.
Yes.
And I'm excited to be the special guest host. Before we get going, have I ever done this?
Yes. Absolutely.
Where I've been the host?
Yeah, man.
They put me on a different planet today. So they were playing their music earlier. I thought they played 5 songs. They only played 4. Then I, for some reason, thought Dominic's last name started with a G. So, you know what? Just bear with me. This will be a roller coaster, as Dominic said earlier. But jumping right into things, because that's what we're doing here now.
We hypnotized him pretty good today.
You did get me good, guys. I don't know. Or it could also be daylight savings, too.
That's true.
Maybe a combination of both. All right. Well, there's more than just me on this show. So I want to open this up to some dialogue. And I'm going to bring up a topic that I kind of went into earlier, and I want your guys' take on this, and folks out there, your take as well. So my comment/question is this: do things in finance, in art, in culture, politics, just about everything in daily life, do these things truly ever change, or are they just a new iteration on something that already happened before? And we've talked about this to extent in the past, but this came up in my life because I'm very into alternative types of finance, right? And I've been interested in stocks and things like that since the internet became a thing, right? So I grew up in a world where there was no internet. And then as I started to grow up, I watched technology change things. And what I watch happen every 10 years is simple. Young people between probably 20 and 35, they adopt new technology. They push it forward, and then they push it forward so hard that it eventually becomes commonplace. But here's where the question came up and why I thought of this in the first place. I noticed that these young people, in all their excitement with the new technology that comes out, they always seem to have this idea that they're the first generation to ever do something like this. And they truly believe that they are going to banish or push out the old guard, and that they'll just totally eliminate them and they'll just replace them. I feel old now, but I'm old enough to say that, in my humble opinion, that never really takes place. And if anything, what I watch is good ideas driven by young people that eventually get adopted by older people. So my question would be this: does anything truly change, or is it all just an iteration of something that's already happened before? And I would love your thoughts on this.
I'm gonna let you go first.
Well, I think definitely a great percent of it has to do with things that happened before, or they wouldn't probably be able to happen now, because just like with all of this IT technology, it sort of goes all the way back to the light bulb. I mean, if we didn't have electricity, there wouldn't be much IT floating around here.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
A long time ago, we found electricity. Of course, we said we invented it, but we found it, discovered it.
That's interesting. I like that.
Yeah. And, now things have progressed on down the line, and we have lights in the house and lights on the street and computers.
Yeah.
And they don't use quite as much electricity as some things, but they do use electricity, and people are making all different types of programs in them, which leads to art. I'm not sure if we've quite got there yet.
Right. But again, like, does anything really change? Or is it all the same, just wrapped differently?
So,
Well, I think it's wrapped differently, but it's also, I mean, like I said, with electricity,
Yeah.
we discovered electricity. Well, we didn't discover electricity,
Right.
but at some point in time, we found it and figured out something about it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
so I think it sort of goes that way
Yeah.
a little bit.
I would say that I feel like there's a difference between doing something new and change. Maybe and just because of the context that you set it up with, like this idea of change meaning a thing that gets picked up and dealt with, or
Right.
a thing that gets picked up and utilized in such a way that it becomes more commonplace and accepted,
Right.
and it actually does change what was going on before. I think there's a difference between that and actually finding, inventing, discovering, whatever, something new. So
So what you're saying, and I think I'm tracking, is sometimes we just lump the two together.
I think it's easy to, but I think that you know this from trying to do things that are even just not even new, but actually different. You might do them, but they might not be picked up and utilized.
Sure.
So they might be there. I do believe that you can create something anew. Now, before I go into that,
where would that come from?
Yeah, create something new. But before I go into that, I would say that I think the majority of things that we're seeing, especially that which is commonplace, which usually is also therefore in the marketplace, the marketplace isn't really a place for new things.
Sure.
I mean, it is, but it's not really practiced that way. It's not really what gets dealt with.
Right.
So the majority of things that we see, whether it be in music or movies or politics or whatever, these are sort of iterations of things that are already there. Because people aren't too, they're not too quick to pick up on something that's completely unfamiliar and start using it.
Do you think like there's maybe like a certain aspect of being young that almost what is it about the younger people that they seem to be the ones that adopt these new practices? I think it's so knee jerk to say, oh, the youth are always trying to rebel, but is that true? Is it just a product of being young that you think they're the ones that want to pick these new things up and push them forward, or is it just, I don't know. I'm trying to.
I do think that they want to push things forward, definitely.
Right.
Because they're young.
Right.
They have a great deal of energy. And that energy is just flowing. And
That's true.
And that energy may not necessarily be the energy that, let's say, the people who have the Fortune 50 corporations in the country, that energy that they're doing is something that they're doing because they are there and they've evolved to that. Whereas this young energy is sort of, it's moving forward, but it's also spinning as it's moving. And then all of a sudden, a different approach or idea may pop out. Now, whether people grab onto that or not,
Right.
it's hard to say.
Right.
Just like, with art, I mean, with music, we're still listening to all different kinds of music. However, the all different kinds of music that we're listening to is all different kinds of music that has been done a long time ago,
Yeah.
or if you go, oh, well, classical, that's a long time ago. Well, if you listen to most of the bands that are playing these days, they're playing stuff that, came out in the 50s and the 60s. Mm-hmm. And people are still listening to that, which is fine. But they're also limiting the forward motion of something that is being considered a little off track, a little off base. Oh, but it's also new. You haven't heard it before.
So
but it doesn't get grasped and grabbed like the other things do.
So did you want to comment? Because I had something to bring up from one of the last things Paul said a month ago, but I want you to go first.
Sure. I would say I agree with what he's saying, and I would also say that maybe there's a tinge of like what we talked about last week, a belief that even if it's erroneous, fuels you and propels you into some direction that you maybe it's because you really truly do believe that you're doing something new and therefore will pursue it with passion and voraciously move it forward or something, even if you aren't necessarily doing something new. When you're younger, you might not be as familiar with the things that have occurred, and you might think this is a new idea or something fresh. And I'm not saying it's always the case that it isn't, but I mean, I know this from doing what I've doing, trying to find something different to play in music, that there are things that I've come upon that I've been like, wow, this is amazing, and I've never heard it before, and I think I'm onto something new. And then eventually you stumble into it, and you're like, oh, well, here it is, damn it, But right. You still were like had this energy towards doing it, so. Maybe it's something to do with that in youth, but I also would say it's a general personality. We have a perfect example of that sitting right here at 72 years old, still trying to do something different,
Yeah. So, sidebar, but being barefoot while doing this is rough.
Rough?
My feet are freezing. I need more energy going to my feet right now. So if I'm rubbing my feet on camera, I got hobbit feet, by the way, so... But it's just because they're cold.
All right.
But so you both just sparked something that we talked about a month ago, and this is truly a question, not even rhetorical. So if we're looking at this idea of energy, right? And Paul was talking a couple shows ago about people getting together in a park or outside of the Pentagon, and all devoting mental energy towards changing something. And how the idea that there's also this other energy that's pushing against it, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that that's a great example of everything that we're talking about, especially with, are things actually new or are they just iterations of the old? It doesn't really matter now that I think about it, as long as there's that energy going towards the progress, right? So right. I think I started out asking you guys in a way that was, is anything new or is it all just a rehash? And I don't know if it really matters. And I've changed my mind in the last 10 minutes because of what you guys have said, which is that young people have this energy. They're pushing forward. They might be pushing forward in a way that it never gets picked up or it gets resisted, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess the question in all of this is pretty simple, and that would be, is the motivations behind that energy, is that more powerful or is the outcome more powerful? And so hear me out. I might be motivated by vengeance or greed or altruism to end world hunger. Okay. Now, does it matter what's motivating me to get to that? Because I could be doing it as a way to get back at an ex-girlfriend or an ex-wife. And I could say, I'll show her, right? I'll end world hunger. Does it matter? Like, does the purpose behind the energy matter, or does the desired outcome trump all? Did I stump them? I don't know. No?
I think that the desire, the outcome, trumps all of it.
Okay.
However, that being said, though, is that I don't believe, though, that a lot of energy like that is negative energy.
Right.
I don't believe that's where it comes from, because I feel as though there's spiritual things that happen within the planet and within us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the good, yes, some comes out of bad, of course. I mean, the wars we've seen forever and ever,
Yeah.
they didn't come out of anything good.
No.
But that's all I really have to sort of say about that.
So I guess in layman's terms, what I just asked, which is something that people have said before, which is, do the ends justify the means? So I basically just asked you in a long way, does the result justify how you move to get there?
Does the result justify how you move to get there?
Right.
I think
you
that-
want to end world hunger. You will literally
Look,
do anything to do that, to get there.
I would say that if your motivations are coming from those other side of things like greed and vengeance and things, and your goal is still positive, if you reach that goal, yeah, that trumps it. But man, I have a difficult time thinking that
But
you'd
how
be able
do you
to
reach
maintain
that
that
goal?
if you're greedy.
You could end world hunger and still have war.
Yeah, but so the reason I bring this up is to like come back full circle here, which is again, I look at every 10, 15 years, an upswelling takes place. I don't care what it is. I mean, I've said this before on the show. I have a financial market vantage point just because of traditional schooling.
Sure.
And right now I'm looking at the financial market going through huge change. And I hate to say it, but I think that the people who are pushing it now are motivated by all the positive things. And they see this desired outcome of, financial transparency for all and equality for all. And they're being motivated by that to push it forward. But what's going to happen, what always happens, is we're going to get to that outcome. We will get to that outcome.
Right.
But along the way, other motivations and other energy sources with different reasons for doing it will come into the marketplace. And there'll be this weird parallel course where the youth are positively pushing forward. The establishment is negatively pushing forward, but they're actually both going to the same place.
They're like assimilating on I don't think you can let that stop you from movement. You know what I mean? Like if you move the thing forward, or whatever we want to call that, and then you've got these Klingon things that are sort of corrupted.
Yeah.
If they don't, well, I would say if the thing can continue without being corrupted, but there's other things going on that are like versions of it, but they're corrupted,
the thing still has to go forward, right? And
Yeah.
if it actually then makes some progress at all on the previous iteration,
then it's worth it.
yeah, I'd say it's worth it. Why? I mean, otherwise you're going to stay stagnant, and then all the avenues of doing, just like we see them happen, all those avenues of whether it's earning or whatever, they become like clogged arteries because
Right.
everybody is able to identify the avenues of doing, and they just try to shove themselves down those paths. And then things stagnate even more.
So,
I would think. I mean,
and I don't know how you guys could probably answer this for hours, but so with all of these different things in mind, where, if you can even put a finger on this, where does that energy come from? That both the positive and the negative energy. What is, Paul, I agree with you. Young people do have more energy, right? But why is that? Is that a physical thing? Is it a mental thing? Is it a spiritual thing? And so we have these opposing energies, right? Mm-hmm. Which Paul mentioned. We've got the positive progress forward, but we also have the establishment energy pushing back. How does that, is it something that's always been there, or is it something that's harnessed? I mean, in your opinion, where do you find that this is coming from?
I think it's always been there, the positive and the negative.
So it goes to your point, which is we're not creating this energy. We're actually just finding it, just like electricity.
I mean, I think so. I mean, I talked to my wife Jere about this a lot, and she is very deep into meditation.
Sure.
And sometimes what happens with her in the room is like not what you would see on TV or on this show.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that the positive and the negative both exist, mm-hmm. and the negative is striving just as much and just as hard mm-hmm. as the positive mm-hmm. is trying to move forward, whereas the negative isn't so much trying to move forward, they're trying to control.
Okay, so the camera just cut out on us, which is the first time I think this has ever happened, which to me tells me that I'm doing such a good job that I broke the camera. And we were about to stumble on something so profound that the forces of evil tried to stop us. So, Paul, if you would continue here, you were talking about how your wife has discussed both positive and negative energies pushing forward at the same time.
Right, and the spirituality of both of them. And it seems as though that the positive energy is always moving forward in a positive manner,
right,
and trying to create and be creative in a positive way, whereas the negative energy is almost just a little behind, and it's trying to hold that positive energy back, and then it tries to leap out and interact with it and turn it in a different direction. But that being the positive energy, when actually grouped and concentrated on with people that are really concentrating on the positive, it does move forward and it does help all mankind, and it's trying to interact with helping the planet as well.
So with that in mind, Dominic, this is, I guess, for you. Knowing that the positive forces and the negative forces are there, what, and I guess as far as you see, what gets people or entities off balance to a place where they move away from the positive and into the negative? What is actually causing that? Because through all of history, right, I think we can agree with Paul that enough people come together with enough of an intention to do good, 9 times out of 10, whatever it is that they're trying to do is going to happen. And we see it for the last thousands and thousands of years. We watch it happen. So why is it that we still haven't caught on to this idea that, wait a second, we just all kind of concentrated on this one thing, could actually fix whatever the problem is? What's pulling people to that negative side of things?
Man, that's a tough question. I think usually where I would tend to go with something like that is, well, of course everybody's different. Mm-hmm. Everybody has different beliefs about how things should operate or how they do operate and where they'd like to see them go. And typically I'd guess this will lead me to whatever, but something more to do with self than to do with
the group,
the greater, the whole thing, and trying to make sure and ensure that self is in a good position, whether or not that means that other things are not.
I think, though, a big part of the negative energy happens to be something called greed.
Mm-hmm.
Which to do with yourself or you and yours, whoever that might include. And, if you then isolation, I also think it's a big isolation of ideas, putting yourself in echo chambers that only support the thing that you believe is true.
So what is the benefit? Because there must be something. What is the benefit towards pushing forward negative energy? Why do people do it?
Well, I mean, man, you could see over and over again, if you look at history, even in the history of this country, that, taking for yourself and then setting up for who you think should be set up, whether or not it's just your family or your neighbors or the people that look like you or think like you. That a lot of times those situations develop into something that's working for those people. And so you say, I want to have that kind of position in my life where I can have a nice house and go where I want to when I want to and make sure I can see the doctor when I need to. Mm-hmm. And if that means that I got to live like this and these people over here live in a different condition, so be it.
Yeah. So, doing my best to again, try to piece through the stream of everything we talked about, I guess now what I'm kind of coming to an understanding of after listening to you guys is that as things are changing or being pushed forward, is something new being created or is it just an iteration of the old? I don't know if I care about that answer anymore. But what I do seem to have an understanding of now is this. The people who are pushing these things forward for the better are usually being motivated by the positive aspects of life force and energy. I'll just use that word because we keep using it. But then somewhere along the line, that negative energy steps in. But I think now that for the most part, change does happen. Whether it's brand new or not, doesn't matter. But it always levels itself out. Or it seems to. And now I have this vision in my head of a yin yang. And I don't, we can probably talk about this for a few more minutes, but now I'm thinking it's almost that both sides need the other one to exist.
I would agree, because this is where the last question that you asked me and the answer I'm giving to it that says so involved in self.
Right.
Where I would say that can have this negative outcome. I also believe, and I learned from Jere too, that she has a meditation that is that the truth, wisdom, beauty, and honor, understanding are all in our minds. And I believe that you can go into yourself to find that which is unique and present that to the world. I was at the Van Gogh immersive event last night, and a couple of the quotes that were there, like one of them was, if you have a voice in your head that says you cannot paint, then paint with all your being and that voice will be silenced. And also something like, I know that I have within myself a true understanding and application of color. I just need to go inside of myself and bring it out. Or instead of painting just a nature scene, he puts his own colors in there, no matter if they're correct or not. Correct. So it's something funny, like at the same balance, that same yin yang is like, okay, well, going too far inside of self and isolating could cause this, sort of negative thing, but also going inside of yourself and pursuing that which you believe can bring forward this positive thing. So maybe it's just like what you say. It's almost like it's just a decision within the individual.
Well, I think it's about that time, and I think for where I thought I would go with this, we ended up somewhere totally different, which I think, Dominic, you say most of the time.
And it happens all the time.
Where you do these, so I guess I did it right. I guess my final thoughts would be that for all the youngsters that are pushing things forward, who cares if it's new or not? Just do it.
Yeah.
And
sure.
listen to the positive life force that's burning within you, because you will not always have that amount of energy, but try not to lose all of it. And then the other thing that I'll mention is that for people that might be watching this, to understand that this negative force that Paul and Jerry were discussing personally, I think everybody experiences these types of forces. And I think that it's easy for a lot of us to think that only those negative pressures and pulling of that negative energy is only happening to us. But the reality is it's happening to everybody. Some are just better at handling it than others. And the only way to get better at it is to talk about it, which is what we encourage people to do. Comment on the show. Email Dominic. Don't email me, because I'm just the guest host. And just reach out. If you have a new idea that you think's new and we'll just tell you, hey, someone already did this, that's fine. Or if you even just want to say hi, right? I think that sometimes it's okay just to say hi. And so you guys can reach Southern Maryland Loves You by going to somdlovesyou.org. Mm-hmm. You can reach Progress Culture by going to progressculture.org. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube.
I don't know if we have all those things.
I'm manifesting it. And I want to say thank you to my guests, Paul and Dominic. Hopefully they'll come back. And it's been a pleasure for me. So that's all I got.
Right on.
All right. Well, thank you guys. And tune in again next week, and we will be talking about something just as interesting, hopefully. Pressure's on, Dominic. See you later.
Dang.
Thank you all for being with us. We appreciate your time and consideration. And, as always, please feel free to reach out to us at progressculture.org and sonic-spirits.com. We are building a community that supports positivity and progress for all, and in all fields. If you have any ideas about how to do that, please share them with us, share them with each other, and we can make it happen. Thanks for watching and listening. We hope to see you on the next one. Much love.